Hi, I'm Eric Siegel with ericstrains.com. Today we're going to be taking a look at a big new O-scale steam engine from Lionel, the new 2884 EM-1. Folks, don't adjust your television or computer screen. What you're looking at is an unpainted, uncatalogued pilot version of the EM-1 that Lionel released in addition to the painted versions that they also released. When I first went over to Legacy Station a couple weeks ago to pick up the new EM-1, I had originally intended on getting the painted B&O version, but when I got there, I was offered the unpainted pilot version that you see here, and I decided to get that instead because it is so unusual and so different from anything else I have in my collection. One of the things that I really like about the unpainted version is that it highlights all of the detail and workmanship that goes into one of these engines. You know, when they paint these things black, a lot of times that kind of obscures some of the finer details, and with it unpainted like this, you can see every single detail, and it really gives you an appreciation of the manufacturing process, and it also helps to justify the high price tag a little bit. But as much as I like the unpainted version myself, I realize that it's not for everybody. There are lots of people who are going to say, hey, it's not painted, that's not prototypical, I don't want that. And if you feel that way, that's perfectly fine. That's why Lionel only put the unpainted version out as an uncatalogued release. The cataloged versions of the EM-1 in the 2012 Volume 1 Lionel catalog are all painted, and they come in several different road names. But regardless of whether you choose the painted or the unpainted version of the EM-1, the engines are exactly the same. So anything you see on this unpainted version is also going to be on the painted version. The EM-1 is a brand new model for 2012. Lionel's never made it before, and it was first made available in the 2012 Volume 1 catalog. Now, an interesting thing about these engines is that they actually shipped before the catalog ever came out. These things were in stores a good month before the catalog was available, and that's sort of indicative of what Lionel's been doing lately. They've gotten really caught up on their production schedule, and in many cases the items ship out as soon as the catalog is released, and in some cases, like with the EM-1s, they ship even before the catalog is ready. Let's go over some quick stats and info on this engine. It measures in at right at 31 inches long. It's about 32 inches if you count the couplers. This is a very heavy model. The engine and the tender weigh in at 15 pounds 10 ounces, and that weight is no small factor in the great pulling power of this engine. This engine has just over 4 pounds of pulling power, which is outstanding. The minimum recommended curve for this engine is 0.72. The engine comes equipped with Lionel's Legacy command system as well as Legacy rail sounds. To get the most out of this engine, you'll want to run it with Lionel's Legacy command system, but you can also run it with Lionel's classic TMCC command system, or you can run the engine conventionally. The EM-1 was definitely one of the largest steam engines ever made. It's a 2884 articulated steam engine. The 2884, of course, refers to the wheel arrangement. You've got 2 wheels up front, 8 drive wheels here, another 8 drive wheels here, and 4 wheels on the trailing truck, so they call it a 2884. This thing has 22 wheels, so it is gigantic, and that's the reason why the minimum curve is 0.72. So sorry folks, if you've got a small layout with 0.36 or 0.54, this engine is just not going to run on that kind of layout. The EM-1 has some great features and details on it, so let's go ahead and take a closer look. Here's a look at the front of the pilot, and as you can see, it's very nicely done. We've got some hose detail right here, a coupler cut bar with a chain and pin that goes down into the coupler so that you can lift up on the coupler cut bar and get some nice action like that. This coupler is a dummy O-scale coupler, but if you want to double head the engine, Lionel also packages a dummy O-gauge coupler with the engine. And the O-gauge coupler also has a hole in it just like the scale coupler does so that you can still run that little chain and pin through it. Now, for those of you who watch my product reviews on a regular basis, you know that I always talk about separately applied details on these engines, which are details that are applied by hand after the engine is cast. Well, the nice thing about this unpainted EM-1 is that it lets you see all of those separately applied details really easily, because all of the separately applied details are either brass, like this hose, or they're black, like these little eyelets. So as I go through the engine and show you all the details, I want you to keep an eye out for all of the brass and black details on the engine, because all of those were applied by hand, and it's one of the things that makes these high-end engines so nice. Okay, so moving up on the pilot, we've got an operating headlight right here and lighted number boards on either side. We've got nice handrail detail here and safety tread on the walkway up here. Let's take a second and talk about the number boards on this engine. If you've noticed, this number board, as well as the one over here that you can't see right now, are blank. The reason they're blank is because this is the unpainted version of the EM-1. And because it's unpainted, there is no road number on the engine, and so the number boards are, of course, blank. And in fact, when you first take the unpainted version out of the box, the number boards aren't even installed. You have to install them yourself. But if you buy one of the painted versions of the EM-1 from Lionel, the number boards will be installed when you take it out of the box, and of course they will have the proper road number on those number boards. Here's a look at the drive wheels and the running gear on this engine, and you can see they did a great job. It looks fantastic when the engine is moving, and you can also get a look at some of the nice details they added to the underside to give this engine a little more character. The front of the boiler looks great. You've got all this nice detailing down here, great rivet detail all around, operating marker lights here, a little swinging bell, and then the front of the boiler swings open, like that. The sides of the EM-1 look great on this side as well as on the other side. Now it should be noted that on the unpainted version of the EM-1, the little brass builder's plates are not on the engine when you take it out of the box. They're packaged separately and you have to apply them with a little bit of CA glue. But if you buy one of the painted versions of the EM-1, the builder's plates will already be on there. Up on top of the engine, you've got some nice piping detail here and some nice rivet detail going on back here. Here are the twin smokestacks, and of course inside you've got an operating smoke unit. Moving back, we've got a nice sand dome here and then some additional piping back here, and then we come to the whistle. The EM-1 comes with Lionel's whistle steam smoke effect, which is one of the many cool innovations that Lionel has come out with in the last few years. And for those of you who haven't seen it before, the way it works is that you've got the whistle right here, and there's a hole underneath the whistle. And when you blow the whistle, it shoots smoke out of that hole, and it gives the illusion that steam is shooting out of the whistle, and it looks really, really cool. The whistle is powered by its own smoke unit, and to fill that smoke unit, what you do is you remove the top of this first sand dome, like that, and there's a hole, and you just pour the smoke fluid right down that hole. Moving past the whistle, you've got a second sand dome, and if you pop the top off of this second sand dome, it reveals the controls for the engine. You've got the run program switch, the Odyssey speed control on-off switch, and then the two on-off switches for the two smoke units. As we get toward the back of the engine, we've got some nice detailing here, and we've got opening vents on the roof of the cab. Back here towards the firebox and the cab, it's very nicely detailed all over the place, but especially right around here. And on the firebox, they've got the variable ashpan glow effect, so when the engine is on, you'll get a red glow here that gets more intense as the engine gets faster and faster. Here's a look at the back of the engine and the inside of the cab. There are separately applied grab irons and curtains on either side of the cab, and then on the inside there are two painted crew figures. There's a very detailed back head with lighted gauges and a red glow in the firebox, and if this was the painted version of the EM-1, there would be hand-painted valves and gauges and so forth on the back head. Here's a look at the underside of the engine, and as you can see, there's a whole bunch of wheels on this thing. You've got traction tires on the back two drivers on each set of drivers for a total of 4, and then you've also got 4 pickup rollers for good solid electrical contact. Now let's take a look at the tender. As you can see, the tender is pretty Spartan, but again, the tenders on the real EM-1s weren't exactly fancy either, so I think that's okay. The trucks on the tender are all die-cast metal, and as you can see, they're very nicely done. The front of the tender features some nice cast-in details, including some nice cast steps down here, and you've got a separately applied grab iron on either side. Up on top, we've got a little pile of real coal, and it should be noted that if you buy the unpainted version of the EM-1, as I did, the coal is not on the tender when you take it out of the box. It's packaged separately in a little baggie, and you have to apply it yourself. So I poured the coal out onto the tender like you see here, and then I secured it down with some diluted white glue. However, if you buy the painted version of the EM-1, the coal will already be on the tender when you take it out of the box. Back behind the coal, there's a little hatch, and if you open it up, there's the volume control for the engine. On the back of the tender, we've got operating marker lights and an operating reverse light, a separately applied ladder, separately applied grab irons, and a coupler cut bar, and add-on steps on either side. Okay, the last thing we're going to do before we power the engine up is the new segment called BFIMO, Best Feature in My Opinion. This is a tough one because it really depends on which version of the EM-1 you have. If you've got the unpainted version like you see here, I think that's the best feature, that it's unpainted. It looks so different and so interesting that it's really the thing that sticks out in my mind when I think about this engine now. But if you've got the painted version, I would probably say the best feature is the chuffing sound effect when you run the engine. You'll hear it in just a minute when I start this thing up, but I just really like the chuffing sounds of the articulated engine. It just sounds really nice, and in my opinion, it's something that makes this engine special. Okay, so let's go ahead and start this engine up, and we'll run it around the layout for a minute.
Dispatcher here. Do you copy? Over. I read you. Over. Please start her up and stand by for track orders. Roger that. Ready to move. Out.
Okay, here's the whistle. Here's the bell. Here's some of the crew talk.
Dispatcher here. You are cleared outbound. Over. Copy that. I'm green. Out. We're ready. Is it okay to pull? Over. Roger that. Take the green. Over. Copy that. I'm green. Out.
Here's the water fill sound. Here's the cylinder steam sound effect. As I said, this engine has the whistle steam smoke effect, so here's that in action. Okay, let's go ahead and roll it out. I'm going to activate the sequence control by holding down the aux1 key. Okay, and that'll automatically control the sounds as we run the train. So let's go ahead and roll it out.
You're on the move. Over. Acknowledged. Out.
Okay, that about wraps it up for this review. This is a great engine that I'm happy to have. I love the unpainted version. I think it does such a great job of showing you all of the work and craftsmanship that goes into these engines. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. But again, I realize that the unpainted version is not for everybody. That's why Lionel made plenty of painted versions as well. They made several different road names. Obviously, the most popular is going to be B&O, but they also made DMIR, Western Pacific, Northern Pacific, and Great Northern. The retail price on this engine is right at $1,300, although you should be able to get a pretty good discount off that with a good Lionel dealer. And if you're looking for a good Lionel dealer, try my favorite train store, which is Legacy Station. You can call them at 770-339-7780, or find them on the web at www.legacystation.com. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm Eric Siegel, and I'll see you next time.